come through this little theater that Tommy's dad owned, and that's where he met Cheech, because Cheech was up there kind of fleeing the draft during the early 70s, not wanting to get drafted, and they both hit it off and did their stage routine many years before they even got into recording records and putting it down on vinyl. And these records, I tell you what, like I said, they sold millions and millions of copies to all the young kids my age at that point, back in the 60s and early 70s, because it was the only comedy outlet. It was almost like the precursor to George Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
And you and I both love George Carlin. But George was not the first. It was Cheech and Chong back then in the old days.
I think probably, I hate to say it, George probably picked up, a lot from those two. And, and that's probably what got, well, of course, George started out, like the hippy-dippy weatherman. You remember that?
Yes. Matter of fact, I remember seeing some old footage of George Carlin when he came out on the Ed Sullivan Show and the Johnny Carson Show later on in a suit and a tie.
Oh, yeah.
And he had short cropped hair, and he was a very straightforward comedian, not into the drug culture, comedy at all or anything like that. Very kind of not conservative. He was still kind of crazy. But then I think he probably took a cue maybe from Cheech and Chong on how popular they became on their records, played over radio. And that's when he went into, George Carlin is very famous for a United States Supreme Court case regarding his comedy routine, the 7 dirty words you cannot say on radio.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you remember that in the old days.
Yeah, yep.
And what happened was that his record actually was, this radio station that played his records of these, basically the 7 words you were not supposed to say on radio back in the old days. He got sued at the radio station, and so the radio station hired the lawyer that took this case all the way to the United States Supreme Court on, what is obscenity and what is not obscenity. And that was one of the, back in the old days, when one of the Supreme Court justices actually said in the dicta of a case, I really don't know what obscenity is, but I know it when I see it.
Well,
that was one of the,
he had one of his albums was actually banned, if I remember right. It was banned even to be sold for a while because of the use of the F word and a whole bunch of nice words.
Yes.
Nowadays, you go on to any cable channel and you hear the F word all the time.
Yeah, you do. And even though the radio station lost their case in the United States Supreme Court, and there was upheld a ban on certain words you could not say back in those days, that just opened the floodgate at that point because of George Carlin, where the network censorship became loose and loosened up a little bit. So that was a fascinating side story to George Carlin, and also probably a throwback to Cheech and Chong as well.
Well, I also think, too, his album being banned, the lawsuit and all that stuff, I think that helped catapult him, to advance his career drastically because, people, this album is banned, and they just wanted more and more and more, and then the average person.
That's right.
Hey, saying fuck. What is wrong with saying fuck? I can say this. I'm not rude. You know that. You're an attorney, right? I'm not.
Right,
I don't come under the FCC yet, anyway. So and I apologize for saying the word fuck. I won't say fuck again the rest of the night. I promise I won't say fuck. Okay, fuck. I won't say it. But anyway, he used those words, and you know what? People related to it because what do you do when you hit your hammer? You hit your thumb with a hammer. Now you're gonna say shit, or you're gonna say fuck. That hurts. Come on. I mean, it's a normal word that even I bet you a priest has used. So I mean, the censorship back in the 50s, 60s, and all that stuff was totally ridiculous. Remember Dick Van Dyke? You remember Lucille Ball?
Yeah.
I Love Lucy. Did you ever see him sleeping in the same bed?
No, isn't that fascinating?
How do they have kids? I was kind of curious. How could Leave It Beaver's parents have, the Beaver? I mean, they slept in separate beds.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago running across on YouTube an old studio set photography of I Love Lucy set. And it was fascinating to see kind of like a bird's eye view of how they put the bedroom set and the kitchen set, and then the front room, the living room set that was very famous on the I Love Lucy television show, all in the same sound stage. And one of the things that is just very glaring at the time when you look at it now was the two bed sets that were sitting right next to each other in a bed stand separating the two. That was kind of interesting and retro for me to watch that.
Well, I'm just wondering back, my parents didn't have two beds. My grandparents didn't have two beds. I only on TV from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it started changing in the 70s, like Three's Company, with him escapades, not being married, but his girlfriends. But then all those shows after that, all of a sudden, guess what? They didn't have twin beds anymore. They had a single bed. Reality, okay? I mean, let's face it, though. If everybody slept in twin beds, we wouldn't have the world population problem we have. So I think Trump tomorrow should pass a bill that is mandatory that everybody get rid of their queen and king-size bed and buy twin beds. That's going to also help the economy because it's going to create more jobs because they have to produce mattresses. They have to do new, bed covers, sheets, and all that stuff and blankets. So it's going to create jobs in that way. Then they're also going to have to create, the furniture for making, twin beds. So look at it. I figured a way how we can improve the economy overnight. Make it mandatory, twin beds.
Yeah, it might help the old population control problem too. Who knows?
Well, at least I won't have to hear my wife snoring right next to me anymore.
Yeah, I can commiserate with that. I am a sleep apneiac myself. I have a CPAP machine that I can't do without. That's for sure.
Well, what's really bad is when you're married and you love your wife, but as soon as she hits the bed, 3 minutes later she's snoring. That isn't the bad part. You got a 20-year-old part terrier, part poodle. It snores just as loud as your wife. And it snuggles in between you two. So you hear one person going, and then you have that one go, how can you sleep at night? It's impossible. I've been many nights I have snuck in the middle of the night, with the light turned off. I walk down the hallway. I walk in my studio. I look at, even being a big guy, I look at this love seat I have in here for when I have guests on it, right? I walk back into my bedroom, tippy-toeing. Can you imagine this big guy? Tippy-toeing, I grab my blanket, I grab my pillow, right? I grab my bottle of water, I sneak in here, get and set my alarm to go off at 4:30 in the morning because my wife gets up at 4:45. If I can, sneak back into the bedroom, right? And take my blanket and my pillow back in there. My wife wakes up. I'm happy. I'm back in bed. She thinks I've been there the whole time. Don't tell anybody. I mean, I don't want the audience to rat me out. Probably 4 nights out of 7 nights a week, I'm sleeping in my studio. She hasn't caught on to it.
Oh, my goodness. I can totally relate to that. I think my poor ex-wife had that problem for years and years before I finally got a sleep study and took care of the snoring problem. It was probably a lifesaver for me. I don't know about your wife, but it might be something to get her checked out with.
Well, I want to. The other night, she got really mad at me. It was before I got up. I was waiting for her to fall totally asleep. But I know she was sleeping because I heard her snoring. But here's the little thing. Me and you were texting back and forth, right? My wife takes her little fist, hits my shoulder, right, and says, "Stop snoring." And I'm going, Jesus, poopity, poopity, poop. I'm texting Michael right now. I'm not dreaming. I'm texting. How can I be snoring? It's you snoring. You heard your own self. Now, I just got notice from my server. We got 3 minutes. Time is running out. Who is your guest on Sunday's show?
My guest on this Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. is Philip Wade of the Wade Brothers and Ambition Pictures, and they are paranormal filmmakers, and they're going to be talking about the upcoming movie Mount Adams, Aliens of Washington. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, wow. And your show is on Sunday from 7 to 10 p.m., or is it... boy, I'm getting old.
9 p.m.
Yeah, yep. 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific West Coast time on Night Dreams Talk Radio, www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. His name is Michael W. Hall. He is the paranormal lawyer. That's right. He is actually a lawyer. He practices law. And, he also runs a team. It's called the UFO team. They're in the process of making a pilot film for cable network or something?
Actually, we're hoping to get this thing picked up by the Netflix channels or the streaming production companies out there. So we might have hopefully a weekly series is what we're looking at.
Oh, gee. Well, I'll join your group because I always wanted to be a famous movie star. So I'll tell you what I can do. I can get a tinfoil hat made, and that's a bad joke, but I could be the odd one out of the group,
Well, you can be our Harley rider. We need one of those out in the field for sure.
Okay. There's a lot of bikers out there.
That's right.
So anyway, I enjoyed having you on the show. Completely different tonight, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what I like about this. We had our paranormal show, but you know what? I enjoy taking the show any way it goes. And, I like guests like Ron, because you know what, Fitzgerald? Because we can sit and I can talk to him just like he's in the same room, like he's a good friend of mine, and we can just bullshit and just have a good conversation. And you know what? It gives you, the listeners, so much more information about the person, because I'm not sitting there reading a list of stuff to ask them. We're just talking. And when we're talking, stuff comes out.
Yes. No, exactly. It was a very refreshing show tonight. You are the consummate interviewer anyway, and I just love the iconic voice that we're listening to as we watch you do your show. So
yeah, I'm not sure if I sound like Tina Rogers and Mr. Rogers combined. Okay.
No. I said Orson Welles and Tina and Mr. Rogers.
I got you to say it too. I purposely did that. See, I like playing people. I am so sorry. At least I don't sound like Tiny Tim. Tiptoe through the tulips.
Yeah.
Which that could be paranormal too. I mean, because if you're walking through the tulips, you might smoke a few, and then you start seeing paranormal things. But anyway, tomorrow we got a great guest on the show. We have, I'm so confused at this point. Who do we have on here tomorrow?
Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, Dr. Johnson is going to be on talking about Bigfoot. I'm going to play some audio clips he sent me over of Bigfoot talking and all that stuff. And he has a book called Bigfoot out by Dr. Matthew A. Johnson, who lives out here in our state of Washington. With that in mind, I got to run. We're out of time. And thank you for, being a co-host on the show tonight.
Oh, you're welcome, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, you take care.
Bye.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. And thank you